Welcome, everybody, to UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man. The rest of the people on the panel are my good friend Nos.
Greetings.
And my good friend Nancy Timms, and my good friend Drew Banky. We want to welcome a very special guest by the name of Geraldine. I don't know how to say your last name. Orozco or Orozco?
Orozco, perfect.
Yeah. Orozco, okay, to our channel. We've been trying to get her on for a while. She is sought after by many people for trying to integrate their alien abductions into their personal lives and to expand their awareness of self. Please welcome Geraldine Orozco to the UFO Man channel.
Yay.
Hello, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you once again so much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here and have these conversations.
We're glad that you're here. Tonight, our co-host is Nos. Our other co-host, who is Nicole Weber, can't be here this evening because she had something happen in her personal life that she had to address. So to everybody in the chat room who was expecting Nicole, I'm sorry she's not here this evening, but she sends her regards. Also, Odessa, our chat room maven, another young lady who manages our chat room, who also lives in the same domicile as Nos, is out for the count sleeping because she's going on a trip tomorrow at 4 a.m. So she cannot be here tonight as well. So we are going to continue on from there. Okay, Geraldine, in regards to yourself, could you let people who don't necessarily know who you are a little bit about your background and how you got into the field such as the UFO phenomenon or the alien phenomenon?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Geraldine Orozco. I'm an epigenetic psychotherapist, and I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist. I became these things as a result of my experiences, actually. I started having contact experiences since a very early age, about the age of 5. They were not very often, but they were very specific phases of my life as a child, 5, 8, 13, 15, 16, 24. And these memories, these incredibly powerful memories of white lights in my room, missing time, experiences, powerful dreams, are memories that have stayed with me. But at that time, I didn't know that what I was experiencing was this interdimensional contact. And it wasn't until I went into deep meditation in 2013 as a result of major life-changing experiences. My career, I had a high-end event planning company, as well as corporate meditation classes that I taught here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And all of those things kind of led me to going deeper into my questions about, what is the nature of reality? What is love? What does it mean to exist in this planet? And going into meditation helped me deprogram some of these core belief systems that I adopted at an early age. And what I ended up discovering is that when I deprogrammed the majority of these programs, is that I kind of found a somewhat zero point, a point of non-identity, that from there emerged a new way of looking at the world. And it was exactly on October 2013 that I had this incredible conscious contact experience where a white light came into the room. And now I was completely awake and interacting with these beings that were grays, that took me with them on board their craft and took me to the Pleiades, and also showed me and introduced me to my hybrid children, as well as the nature of reality. So from that point on, as a result of that experience, I woke up the very next day with activated psychic abilities to the point where I couldn't leave my house for about, 3 months after that. I couldn't interact with people. My life had completely changed. And having the veil rip open like that was a major adjustment. And, I wasn't ready yet to make the full change in my life. And 5 years later, in 2017, when I finally decided that I couldn't live a double life of having these experiences and a normal everyday life, I decided to change everything. And that's when I went deep into the research of what is hybridization program, what is contact, what does it mean to have these experiences. And I realized that thousands of men and women around the world are having these experiences, and we have to talk about them because there is a major element of our soul, our spiritual illumination that is actually hand in hand with these experiences. That is very important for humanity to understand. So that's how I'm here.
Right, I agree with you 100% in regards to all of us needing to speak about this issue about alien abduction, because it is mostly the government doesn't want to even look at it as a legitimate or a legitimate topic or something that bears veracity. They just don't want to look at it. They're just looking at the nuts and bolts ships that are flying around, and for that part, they're trying to slam the lid on. So we need to do it as a grassroots movement, and I agree with you entirely. Now, Nancy down below, I want to get her in on this conversation. Nancy, what do you think about what she said about talking about it and getting it more out there?
Well, I think we're finally at a point that we can talk about these things to humanity, and it's not the stereotype demonic, crazy talk that people used to label us as. And I think it's a beautiful time, and it's long overdue. But I do feel we had to all go through the past to get us to where we are today. And so we can have the confidence and speak out about these things because they're different. And it is a new way of thinking for humanity, but it's real. And I think that it's beautiful. I think it's a great way of people, and hopefully other people will be listening, and while they may be suppressing these things, and they need to know that there's places that you can go to, meet up groups, places that you can talk and be who you are, and finally know who their inner self is and what this all means, because it serves a purpose.
Are you connected with Opus, Geraldine?
Yes, I'm actually on the director's board of Opus. It's an organization that helps support research into ET contact, and they have a support group as well. I also have my own support group as well. So yeah, there's lots of amazing groups and support out there.
I'm familiar with Les Velez and Yvonne Smith. Both of them, I think, are part of Opus. And they have both been on this channel talking about the same subject you are. Nos, you got a question?
Yeah, I thought for the sake of the audience, it would be good to find out what an epigenetic psychotherapist does.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Well, let me share with you how did I even end up going into the field of epigenetics, and this is interesting because so my first question after what happened was first shock that hybrid children, and what is a hybrid? A hybrid is a combination, a genetic combination of DNA that creates another organism that is a combined. And so for me, the question was, what is
Uh-oh.
Frozen.
children or other organisms that are not 100% from this genetic material, and where does our free will play a role? Do we have any free will in the selection of this experience? Because once they are introduced to us, we don't really play any more participation in that unless we directly choose to. And there's a reason for that, and I can get into all of that. For many of the men and women around the world, the hybridization program functions in this way. There's an implantation process, usually of technology, biotechnology, or some kind of opening channel connection, a portal, a biological portal between the human and these beings. That is usually based in frequency. Then there is the insemination. Then there's the implantation, which is the insemination. Then there is the gestation process. And the gestation process is a super sped up process that essentially creates the zygote, and usually it's within 3 months that that zygote is then removed from the mother. And then there is this process in which there is a presentation once this is done. And probably you'll see Tim showing the images, a painting that I created of the hybrid incubation tanks, in which there are walls and walls of hundreds of these little fetuses that are being incubated. And I'm absolutely not the only person that has seen these, of course, in their experiences. So it does speak to a certain element that we are experiencing collectively of this kind of phenomena, which is very important. And finally, the presentation, which is the hybrid children are being presented to the father or the mother, and there is a very powerful imprinting that is occurring in that process of presentation. And once they are removed after that presentation, usually the parent, just forgets this, sometimes as a dream, but in reality, there are major interconnections, and there is an entanglement between the soul of the parent and the child that now exists. So what I began to research, and this is through my hybrid group, is interviewing hundreds of mothers and fathers that have been having these kinds of experiences from around the world. And what I noticed is that actually contact isn't only dedicated to their immediate family. It's within their ancestral lineage. So the mother has had experiences, the grandmother, the mother before that, and we begin to see a parallel of these experiences in the family. So I began to realize that interviewing and also doing hypnotherapy with them, what began to uncover is that we are actually somehow related genetically to the species that we are interacting with. And a lot of times within these families, we're deeply interconnected with very specific star groups. You can say Pleiadian family groups, Arcturian, Lyran, reptilian, you can name the kind of group, but they are within their genetic code, and it's something that's passed down genetically because, again, this is all about vibrational frequency. DNA is a frequency database of information that interconnects every single human organism on this planet, and also interdimensionally with our brothers and sisters that exist on other dimensions. And that is exactly what we're encountering. So as an epigenetic psychotherapist, the element of deprogramming, limiting painful traumas that are passed down through generations play a role in the kind of frequency that we have. Okay, so if your frequency is really low in your family, tremendous amount of trauma, what I find is that there's a lot of connections with military experiences, such as my lab, and also connections with Draco reptilian connections, and a lot of more parasitic entities and beings that are interacting in these lineages for generations. So the idea is, as an epigenetic psychotherapist, when we deprogram these core belief systems of trauma, the human begins to refine their experiences, both in the terrestrial, regular everyday life, and also in interdimensional, in their dream state. The human begins to gently evolve that experience, breaking contracts that are heavily ancestral, because again, we are one, in order to come into a more heightened state of existence and harmony with all things. And this is where the agreements and the contracts between mother and child, father and child, in these hybrid programs begins to change into an opportunity for healing rather than a parasitic exchange. And so what I'm discovering is that actually the parents have a tremendous amount of power and free will in their ability to choose and co-create with these beings if they wake up consciousness and they begin to change their programming.
We do have a question for you from Love V Love. Do mothers pass on a bit of their soul? And where does the soul come from into these hybrids?
Amazing question. And it was my very first question, because when I began to realize that these beings are literally a fractal of myself. I mean, I could see myself in them, even in their facial features as being these kind of gray humanoids. the way that they moved were like how I move, you know. So there is a core essence that is now replicated in these beings, just like our own children. And bear with me because we're going to talk about a lot right now. But even the humans that we are creating in this lifetime, in this current terrestrial plane, are hybrids. Okay, so our children are part of a hybridization program too, but these are a much larger collective reproduction, self-sustaining organism of the planet Earth. So, what does that mean? That soul, what is the soul? The soul is a fractal of infinite potential of the source. And we splice when we are uniting with the sperm meets the egg. There's an incredible implosion that creates this centripetal spin inside the vortex of that implosion that creates the multidimensional body of the organism that will now be creating this new human, this new being, whatever it is. And that implosion process is a bioelectrical charge that allows the linking of the soul into the organism. So there is a fractal of soul that is actually generated as a product of many systems. And one of these systems is our ancestral lineage through the morphogenetic field. Now, the morphogenetic field is essentially an instruction manual that brings into form each and every one of us. In that instruction manual is essentially DNA information that our ancestors, all of their choices have kind of brought forth into manifestation the requirement for your soul to engage in this dimension. Okay, so for some people that say, I wasn't meant to be here or I don't belong here, biologically, bioelectrically, biochemically, that is impossible because we are so deeply interwoven into a web of co-creation. And every soul, in a sense, has an incredible purpose that heals this entire ancestral lineage with their existence. So in the same way, hybrids are created combining different frequencies from different dimensions. So let's say a Pleiadian organism, whatever their intention is a result of many generations interlinked with a human and their genetic history. And that intercommunication brings forth this new little hybrid. Sometimes the vibrational frequency of that hybrid can be incarnated into the earth plane. And other times, this little hybrid will just incubate in these gestation tanks until the frequency is aligned with the organism. Because there is a certain element of genetic modification that is occurring. But what I realize is that there is a certain self-organizing intelligence with the way that these organisms are also defined. And we play a role in that based on how we use our own genetic data. Okay, so through quantum non-locality, we are deeply interconnected with these organisms. When we raise our vibrational frequency, the frequency of these little organisms also shifts. So our soul evolution plays a role in how we manage all of our descendants. And in this way, we are one. We are one organism of consciousness.
All parts of the same organism. Yes, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say earlier, before you mentioned it, that some hybrids are incarnated here on Earth from a different place, and they make a choice on their mission when they come here, and then they have a mission to fulfill, incarnated as a human soul, a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I wanted to reiterate because it is definitely important for people to know that a lot of us are hybrids, whether you know it or not, because of a lot of DNA changes that have been made over the centuries.
Exactly.
So you may want to read up on some of Geraldine's information on her website, Hybrid Mother, and she has a couple more spots online. Can you mention them, Geraldine, real quick? Your
Yes,
sites?
hybridmother.com is my, it's a free international support group. If you're a contactee, you want to learn more about it, please join us. We will be starting sessions again. And if you want hypnotherapy or DNA reprogramming, it's GERALDINEOROZCO.com. Sorry, I have it right here, that you can visit, which is my general website. I also share a lot of this information on my YouTube channel at Geraldine Orozco, so definitely check that out as well.
Yeah, please subscribe to her YouTube channel. We want to get her up there toward 1 million subs. That would be great. We do have a question for you from Chronicles of Still Waters before I go to Drew. Why do some of us meet our hybrid children when they reach the age of about 20 years old, or is it just me?
Interesting. Well, actually, many people meet their hybrids at any age. And I believe that one of the reasons that we've kind of put together as a result of interviewing many hybrid parents is that it seems that the imprint that occurs when the moment that the parent meets the child is kind of an initiation for both of them. It's a spiritual initiation in some sense. Not only does the human have to shift their consciousness because of the awareness that there is a child that has been agreed to be produced, that there's also a purpose, there's a spiritual purpose. As Tim was mentioning, that every human chooses to incarnate into the dimensional plane. This little hybrid that is being created now is being initiated into some mission that they're going to participate in. And usually that is the time that there is that imprint of awareness from where they come from. What are their roots? And there is a lot of amount of downloads of historical ancestral downloads, multidimensional ancestral downloads, not just regular genetic information that is occurring during that meeting of the parent and that child. So there is a lot of information that is being brought into the child as well as to the parent. And the purpose of that is really that at whatever age you meet the child, because I will mention that in my meeting, there was a child that was also 20, 21, 22 years old. And there were other children, 4 of them, one of which was 8, one of them was 6. So they're at different ages and they were ready to take on some kind of changes in their life. So my invitation to you, and this is very, very important to mention, that your contact experiences, these experiences are very deeply personal, and you want to go deep inside yourself in meditation to begin to question, why am I having it? Take a look at your agreements, the contractual agreements that you have made with your hybrids in order to be clear about what your engagement is. Everything has to be done with awareness. There is nothing that is done without consciousness. Otherwise, that's a very parasitic exchange, and you have also participated in that parasitic exchange because you were dormant at some point in your evolution. So it's important for you to wake up consciousness all the way enough to be aware. When did you fall asleep? When were you waking up? When were you aware of your exchanges? And to see what you're creating and why. That's very important.
Right. Drew.
Oh, I got a whole list for you. First, were you a part of a hybridization program? Are you a hybrid, or do you have memories of being a hybrid?
Yes. Well, after I began to question that myself, I began to do a lot of research, looking back at our history in human evolution. And really, if we take a look at the history and maybe going all the way back to some of the ancient texts that were written, for example, the Book of Enoch, even the Nag Hammadi, which I was just recently reviewing, the Emerald Tablets, there has always been this original stories of the origin of man that had combined with the gods, where human combined with the gods or the star people that descended from the skies. And there are every single ancient civilization on this planet talks about the same thing. So we have literally evolved as daughters and sons of the stars, which we have in our genetic code, and we have that in our memory collectively. And I think that as a result of the frequency changing right now, most of us are recalling those memories more than ever. So I do believe that we are all hybrids, actually. absolutely every single one of us. The amount of genetic modification that we hold within our lineage depends on the collective vibrational frequency of our ancestral line. And there are some lineages that have also evolved to such high level states. They have Christ consciousness very embedded in their code. And unfortunately, a lot of these beings are targeted sometimes by the military because there is a lot of interest in that. And they are utilized for certain programs. Humans that can leave and enter the body quicker are sometimes used parasitically for these abilities. So I think part of being a hybrid is that we're deeply, powerfully empathic, and that empathy, that ability has to be translated into a powerful, intuitive tool for discernment, both in our waking state and our dream state.
Yeah, I have to say, before Drew, yeah, I'm an empath, so I understand. Go ahead, Drew.
No, I also wanted to ask you about those Syrian Star Group. Have you been seeing in your clients, have you been seeing an uptick in people having memories or recalling things from that are involved with the Syrian Star Group, particularly in Egypt with Osiris and Isis? I've been, once it happened, I started having memories. I started coming across so many more people that are part of that same vibration, I guess, that's
Absolutely.
going on. Have you been seeing a lot of people that have memories of Syrian Star Group?
Oh, absolutely. But I will mention something else that I'm discovering over the years, and I've been working in this field already 10 years in like actual working one-on-one with contactees. And what I'm really understanding is that our star lineages are a frequency. As you mentioned, Sirius is a certain frequency, okay? And we are rainbow beings, just like the Tibetans talked about the body, rainbow of light, okay? And what that means is that every single one of the colors of that rainbow is a frequency that we hold within the body that is self-organized in our system, our chakra body, our energetic energy centers. Encoded within each one of the chakras, we have memories of our starseed frequencies that align with the collective memories that we store within the chakra bodies. And what I discover through doing the one-on-one work through DNA reprogramming, when we uncover, for example, a deep trauma of sexual trauma, for example, we can trace that all the way back to Draco-reptilian DNA within their family lineage that they begin to relate to. And it's almost as if that frequency is something that has to be refined from that human collective group through their healing. Okay. And healing means becoming whole. That doesn't mean to have any kind of speciesism where we separate, high vibration, low vibration species, because we are all of them. It's also important to understand that, because what I also notice is that people are becoming really identified with one specific group. But that's quite a limitation, because we really do have all groups. Now, to speak about the pyramids and Egypt specifically, there is a reemergence of that land right now, because the portal and vortex points from Egypt had gone dormant for a long time and have now reemerged. They are reawakening those points. They are healing. The kind of work that they did in Egypt was primarily about training the human soul, leaving and entering the body. That's why they studied and researched death and the afterlife. And many of the ancient civilizations focused on that for a reason, because it's actually in the dream state in which we live the majority of our lives. We sleep half of our lives. And in that dream state is actually when we're extremely proactive, interacting in these higher dimensional planes. So we need to recover the memory of what we're doing in those planes as a form of healing and becoming whole again. And this is what's happening as we recover the memories of Egypt. Because that part of the land, because remember that the planet Earth is a fractal, it's a copy of your body. Your body within your entire body is the entire planet Earth. And what is healing and flushing out through the subconscious collectively of each human is actually also mirrored in the planet Earth. And Egypt is one of these energy points It's a very specific frequency that is clearing from the collective.
Is that like a crown chakra point? Like
Um, I believe that actually it is a chakra between the heart and the solar plexus, which is a chakra of unconditional love and unity consciousness that is re-emerging again within Egypt, that Egypt land. It's a vortex point that connects to and all of the chakras of the planet Earth. And there's a lot of work for humanity right now. We are just entering period 9 in 2025. Period 9 is it's the rebirth of humanity. And we're slowly preparing for that in this year of the 8th year, which means karmic, infinity, karmic cycles that are all coming to an end. So it's important for humanity to, when you get calls and connections to Egypt, for example, what's happening? You have to take yourself back to your past lives on these planets and begin to flush out the karma that is emerging from there. Every single memory, every little hint that you are experiencing throughout your waking state is a healing, is an opportunity for healing that we have to pay attention to. And so the more we do that, we clean the collective.
Oh yeah.
Nos, I can see you chomping at the bit.
There are so many things always to go on here. Like, you know, when you're talking about clearing out the inherited detriments to our spirit, you know, looking back at different ancient writings, I, you know, recalled the Bible where it says the sins of the father will be visited on the sons for 7 generations. You know, and what we're talking about here is that inherited, and there's any terminology you could use for it. You could use it, you know, inherited karma, family curse. That's a common term for it right there, right? But in other terms, what we're talking about is also genetic memory.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's an area that the academic community tries to steer away from and not draw a lot of attention to, because in the neuroscience work that's been done, they've already established that humans have genetic memory. You know, we have instinct. Our instinct is genetic memory that's inherited from our parents and previous generations. But they don't know how to turn it on in order to control how much of the genetic memory we can access, which is something they're going to have to deal with. But yeah, going through a spiritual process, and it doesn't need to be a religious process, but going through a spiritual, psychological process of reflecting. And, you know, I did that when I was a teenager through the Buddhist path, right? And it was starting off with reactions. When there's something that happens in front of me or something I see and I have a reaction to it, just asking myself, why do I have that reaction? Where did that come from? Why do I think that's good? Why do I think that's bad? Who taught me that? Where did they learn it from? Is there any authority to anything anyone believes whatsoever? No, right? And it's that process of unmaking and just getting down to a point of existing as I don't know. Mm-hmm. And once you're there, you're ready to interact with the universe on a one-to-one relationship with reality.
Beautiful. Exactly. And that's exactly what I'm doing in DNA reprogramming is we follow those little trails of the triggers, which are gifts that help us reach the root. And when you go deep down that emotional, lineage, it's amazing that you begin to uncover memories that you never even realized that you had. Memories in the crib, memories in your mother's womb, and they begin to open up a completely different perspective of not only yourself, but your family and the collective, and how we ended up as a humanity enslaved in our own minds in this hypnosis of complete lack of self-knowledge, which is one of the fastest way to become very fragile in this system. The less we know ourselves, the more fragile we are. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There's another thing.
Sorry, I have to give a shout out to Bat Corbin. Nice to see you, Bat.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys.
Okay, so there was another thing I wanted to bring up because, like me, you're familiar with the ancient manuscripts,
Yes.
right? And part of the stuff I'm leading into teaching others is actually the single story that's concealed across all of them. And it requires bringing them all together to see it. But what you're working with is part of that greater story. You know, as we talked about, no matter what the tribe of humanity is, their celestial beings came down, educated the people, engaged in some sort of breeding program, and incorporated that. But one of the things that also exists across those ancient manuscripts is the specific bloodline that comes from that celestial union is the origin of heroes, of demigods, right? And these are the ones that bloodline is established. And when you go across all the ancient manuscripts, you find that these individuals awakening to extreme knowledge and abilities happens because a threat against their tribe's survival is coming. And that's across the world, all the tribal lores, all the ancient manuscripts. So when you have circumstances like what we have happening right now, it's, hey, I'm tapped into the celestial library. I have all these abilities, stuff's going on. This is happening all over the world. And if people had taken the time to put all the ancient manuscripts together instead of competing against each other, they would have seen the message that us awakening to this right now means something really bad is about to go down.
Well, yes, and we could interpret this way. Also, the other side is that something really amazing going to happen as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
which is this.
the heroes win. That's why they're called heroes, right?
That's
We're
right.
going to have to go through a bit of a trial so humanity appreciates where they get beyond that.
That's right. And I think we're going through that. And this is the time right now. And, things will get a little bit more challenging, I think, for humanity during these next couple of years until we readjust and come back into a harmony and balance again. However, the more of us that understand this purpose and apply this into our everyday existence, we are moving timelines collectively as well into a collective harmony. There is no such thing as a victimized collective. We need to wake up consciousness to understand when our free will is available to us. And free will is available to us when we are absolutely present in the moment. We are not existing in the future or in the past or in any kind of fantasy, but completely in the present, in which we can consciously choose, and we do choose with our frequency, the next timelines that happen collectively. And we also have to remember we're cycling. Everything is cyclical. So are going to be ups and downs always, always. There isn't really, because of the nature of this existence, this dimension which we're sharing is dualistic. It is this polarity that we're here to experience. And that's something that we have to understand and mature enough to be able to hold space for the difficult things that can exist within ourselves and outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
This speaks to the maturity, spiritual maturity of ourselves at this time, to be able to see that our own shadows and then the horrible things that might be happening outside as a reflection of those shadows. So we have to, this is how we train ourselves into unconditional love and unity consciousness as we're moving forward.
Have you ever experienced out-of-body experiences?
Out of body?
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, here's the thing. The majority of these experiences are occurring in dream state until you begin to really wake up your intuition, and then you wake up from the dream. You see, all of it is some level of a dream. This is a dream that you and I are in, and it's a dream when I go to sleep at night as well. So when you keep remembering that this is a dream, you wake yourself up consciously and remember yourself, as Gurdjieff has talked about a lot, you begin to kind of shift the way that things occur. So out-of-body experiences can happen now, on a whim when when I want to. You know, bilocating, going to different locations, remote viewing, connecting with people, healing with people in a group. All of these things are abilities that every one of us can do. So one of the things that I learned by becoming a contactee was that my intuitive abilities that were activated after that experience are nothing special at all. These are things that are part of our architecture as humanity, and we have to train ourselves to leave and enter the body in a way that is elegantly and conscious, that we understand where and why we are traveling to those dimensions. What are our agreements? If you are having dreams, you know, nightmares, if you're interacting with a lot of militaristic beings and parasites, why is that? What needs to be cleared from your space in order to shift that? If you are in higher dimensional planes healing other people, you know, there's also agreements there. So this level of awareness is something that we have to train. And I teach a lot about lucid dreaming. It's very important that we learn to become lucid in this waking state as well as dreams, and in order to leave the body in a way that is productive.
I've been starting to follow a set of guidelines that was sent to me by Preston Dennett in regards to learning how to lucid dream, how to remember my dreams when I awaken, and go back and continue that same dream and that same narrative when I go back to sleep. And then realize that what I'm dreaming is a dream state, and being aware of it.
Exactly.
I've gotten to that level, but not any farther. I'm still working on it.
That is incredible. That's incredible that you were able to reach that state. Many people work years for that, and I trained the same thing. So good job.
He has a biological advantage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I found out recently I am definitely a hybrid.
Of course.
And,
Yes.
not just speculative, but definitely. And I am going to confirm it with hair samples and things of that nature later on. Let's go to Nancy Timms, because I know she's got some really good comments brewing. So Nancy, you got the floor.
Okay. All right. We're talking about agreements. We're talking about soul contracts. So hybrids, do they make a soul contract to being a hybrid between a human and a gray alien?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So, something that is interesting about these contact experiences, we have this idea, and it's unfortunate that we have this idea, but most of it has a lot to do with the entertainment industry, and that's a very specific, socially engineered perceptions. They are filters of perception that were inserted into humanity, specifically around the 50s and 40s. That's when these things started to get really heavily put into social engineering through films. The idea that aliens, these strange creatures, are something that are completely separate from us, organisms that we cannot relate to. But in reality, we have been having contact experience since the beginning of time with beings of light, whatever form they might take. And the forms are archetypal manifestations that are kind of, we see that there's kind of a self-organization to the kind of organisms that exist on this planet and within the neighboring star systems that interrelate with our genetic code. So what is occurring essentially is that our agreements are not only between us humans just here on Earth. We have agreements with these interdimensional, with our neighbors, essentially, our cosmic neighbors, which are all encoded in our genetic data. So what's simply happening is that as we wake up consciousness, we are decalcifying, in a sense, or deprogramming the limiting belief systems from dormant DNA in order to begin to access the memory of all that we are. And that's where these memories of our interdimensional species comes forth. So the agreements that we're making are all about genetic code. Now, how do we make these agreements? It's by vibrational frequency, as I mentioned before. If you have a family lineage that has a tremendous amount of trauma, now every single soul that is incarnated into that lineage both participated in choosing to come into that lineage through frequency of the higher purpose of that soul, but also every single ancestor in that lineage, every choice created a collective frequency, and it brings into manifestation the soul that matches this lineage. That's how souls connect to their ancestral lineages. And through the morphogenetic field, we are deeply interconnected. So in the same way, that is an agreement that was made through the frequency. Now, the soul may have many lifetimes. Remember, all of our lifetimes are occurring simultaneously. Again, by frequency. We become aware of them by frequency, and we can uncover the layers of our lives through deprogramming. In fact, many of the seers in the most high vibration beings that have evolved all talk about when you begin to uncover your memories of this lifetime, you will begin to uncover the memories in the womb, and you will begin to uncover the memories beyond that. And that's actually when the human is activating their DNA. So we have to realize that what you'll discover through that work is that there are repetitive contracts of trauma. So in the same way that in your collective, let's say you have a lot of sexual abuse in the family, you discover that you have a tremendous lineage of reptilian lineage. And there's an entire biological structure to this lineage. It's the easiest one to give an example to. I'm not saying that reptilians are all negative. I'm saying just it's an easy example because biologically we hold within us the reptilian system, which is the survival mechanism of our bodies and our organism. Okay, so that's genetically, we have evolved with that genetic information in our bodies. The lineages that utilize and live in these systems for many centuries and generations, they have to break heavy contracts. So any kind of hybrids that are created from this lineage oftentimes will be quite traumatic experiences until they begin to clean up that kind of DNA, that information. On the other hand, high vibration frequencies are people that are maybe really, really high intuitives. They have very, very high consciousness. They have been priests, beings, Jesus-like entities many lifetimes. They also have other agreements that their beings that they're creating are designed to pull forward humanity. Mm-hmm. And many people have hybrids. Many people have different ways. These are all different agreements.
Right.
But again, we have to be aware of what we're doing and why.
Right. So would you say that people that call themselves abductees, in reality, it's a misunderstood and it's actually a heightened awareness, or it's more of a enlightened process of, or part of our evolution? In other words, they just totally misunderstood the whole meaning of it because of the program of being a human and the fear factor, and it was just misunderstood.
That's right. Now, the concept of abduction really comes from an imbalanced wounding of the divine feminine, which is something that we're healing from as a collective right now. Okay, the idea to be completely powerless, to be removed and ripped from your womb or from the safety of your place. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we have been experiencing parasitically with the matrix system, shadow governments, hidden governments within the government that are also deploying some of these parasitic hybridization programs. And there are psyops that are deployed for this purpose, and we have to be aware of that. Most of the parasitic programs are connected to these psyops that are deployed in a lot of the U.S. states, a lot of, around the world, connecting to military, which are deeply connected to deep, dark shadow programs with Dracos. So, but again, to break that, we have to come into our sovereignty. And that means that you have mastery over your emotions. You have mastery over your perception, and you have mastery over your body. That's a complete. So it's all still a spiritual evolution. And that's really what this is about. We are cleaning up the collective. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay. That's what I thought.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, see, we're all kind of tuning into some of this information. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What I'd like to ask you is, have you had any UFO encounters, close-up sightings of your own that you can share with us?
Oh, yes. Well, honestly, I have sightings all the time. There are communications and, of course, experiences in dream state. My dream states are very active, and very lucid. I remember very clearly. A lot of my dreams right now are about going to different dimensions and healing, interacting with beings. But those are agreements that are made. Now, there is always in combination sightings of beings, of lights, orbs in my space that I interact with. But I think at this point, we have to start understanding that the more that we open our third eye and we live in our sixth, we begin to see the world from our intuition, that the world is multidimensional. This is a multidimensional reality. And we have to learn how to interact with these sightings and beings and understand that it's a norm. It's not something that is so strange anymore. And the more that we make it a norm, the more we can kind of integrate these kinds of experiences, I think.
Right.
And
I haven't had sightings of lights or anything like that in my lucid dreaming state, but I have had visions of off-world encounters.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Which is different. And I have one that's repetitive of a world that has red dirt, red dust flying around in the atmosphere. Can't see the clouds or anything because there's so much dust flowing around, and the people are dark skinned and they're wearing like white like togas. And I've seen that. And when I leave that state, it's a really strong sense of loss, like I've separated from family.
Interesting. Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, that is a wonderful, wonderful example. And it's something that I experienced myself many times. For example, when I was taken to the Pleiades, it was this incredible, profound feeling of nostalgia and just I just understood that I had been here before. I had lived here. I had connected with the people here. I was them. They were me. So again, this is the awakening of your DNA. What you're doing is you're remembering who you are. And again, we have many of these. And we have to keep moving as we begin to uncover all of the layers of ourselves. So, yeah.
Okay, we do have a question from Live Light in the chat room. Geraldine, what is your hope and message for humanity? What do you foresee as our future as a species?
That's beautiful. Right now, I have a tremendous amount of passion and love for working with children. And I believe that it's incredibly important that we begin to work with children at an early age to teach about the architecture of our multidimensional body and our abilities, because it's at that early age that we begin to teach a human how to use the user manual of the human body, which many of us didn't. And we lived our whole lives. And finally we wake up and we realize, wow, there was another way of existing. So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is get back to the basics, learn about your tools that are available to you, your multidimensional body. I teach something called GPAC, grounding, protecting, aligning, and co-creating. And these are very simple but extremely powerful technique to begin to live in coherence and alignment with the planet Earth, in harmony with nature, and in the journey of pursuing your complete genuine truth. This is very important for humanity to begin to come into as much authenticity with yourself as possible. And it's very hard to come into to be authentic for many of us because we're programmed and we're conditioned and we are indoctrinated, and we also are now comfortable and biochemically addicted to certain ways of being, even our personality. So we kind of have to break and shift those things, those old concepts, get rid of TV, get rid of film, try to isolate yourself from any kind of vibrational frequencies that move you out of your genuine connection to yourself in the present moment. And it's in that stillness that you will be able to see truth and to be able to identify truth. I think that's extremely important because of the massive amounts of information that are available to us now. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we are. We're lost. So we need to come back to the self. And this is what I would love to teach children, and also invite you, humanity, to begin to focus on as much now.
We have one more question from the chat room from Luke Shanahan from UFO Files Group. Luke is also an administrator on UFO Man Nation on Facebook. So welcome, Luke. He asked, Geraldine, do you think humanity is consciously ready for first contact on a public basis, or do you think we are not quite there yet?
Absolutely. And I will tell you why. I am humbled and shocked by the amount of people that I meet going on a jog in the morning. I'm just walking and, hello, how are you? Yeah. And from 1 minute to the next, we begin talking. And what do they tell me about their dreams? I had this dream that this incredible being, they don't know me, they don't know what I do, but I am shocked at how humanity has changed. And I've been traveling all around the world for the past, few years, meeting people from around the world that are already having experiences in contact. There is a kind of spiritual maturity that is emerging in our human collective right now. And it, again, as Tim mentioned at the beginning of the show, it is up to us that we lay the groundwork as the disclosure of truth as you come into your authenticity. So if you share your experiences, or if you at least acknowledge your experiences in a way that is healing for yourself, we can begin to shift the frequency of the collective into the acceptance that there is interdimensional awareness, and that these things are going to happen. They will happen. This collective emergence. You can simply look at how the government has been behaving by creating a space force, by having that congressional hearing a year ago, where it was blatantly discussed biologics, their interactions, the effects, the research, and there's many new news literally this week about how they are confirming that there are interdimensional species that the government has been suppressing and hiding, and the technology behind that. So none of this is something that is new, or it's already emerging. We just have to pay attention. And so, yes, I think we are ready to answer the question.
They don't want us to pay attention. That's the key. The government does not want us to pay attention. They deflect and divert attention away from what's going on so that you don't know. And the amount of information that's out there that is mind-blowing or world-changing is amazing. And if people would just pay attention, like you said, they would awaken to the truth. Okay, anybody else? Drew, I know you're waiting.
Yeah. Geraldine, what was it? Have you ever met one of your hybrid children in the physical? And if so, what was it like? The very first time, can you walk it through what it was like? Not getting too personal, you don't have to go, uncomfortable, but what was it like for the very first time meeting one of your hybrid children?
Well, in the physical, it's a little bit different. And I'll share with you, in reality, the concept that we are one is not just, it's not just a philosophy, we are one. And I'll share with you, one time when I was speaking at an event, there was this young teenager that came out of the audience. And when I looked at this teenager, I began to have this hit of a memory of being with this person in another lifetime, but also connecting with them. And I had memories of ourselves in being on craft in a contact experience previously. So we are so deeply interconnected, and the child, this young child, was literally my hybrid child that we connected to many lifetimes. They remembered me. They began to tell me about the dreams that they had with me as a child. They recognized me, and dreams that I had as a child with this child at this age, that it was probably 16, 17 years old child. I had a dream about that 16, 17-year-old child when I was 8 years old. And then meeting them in real life at this event years and years later, was just shocking. So what and I hear this all the time, also in my support groups, people are meeting each other, which have met on board craft. Okay. So, we're kind of interacting all the time. And again, we are one. We are so one, that even you and I here on this panel, we've had many lifetimes together. We've done all kinds of stuff, and we agree to be here together, having these conversations with a beautiful audience that's here. We are at a frequency that is defined, and that's what it means to really co-create together. Hybrid children's are a co-creation for a purpose. So yeah, it was a powerful experience that allowed me to understand the deep interconnections that we hold in our memory, in our genetic code.
I keep wondering what the
Thanks for sharing that.
I keep wondering what the ultimate purpose is for the hybrid program, because we always say that we are here for a purpose, but the purpose, is it one purpose or separate purposes? That's what I'm wondering.
Yes. Well, I can only share with you what I have come to an understanding with my work and what I've seen with my contactees. We know nothing, first of all. So, and also I want to make sure everyone understands, whatever you hear from me, please understand, don't take it from me. You have to experience it for yourself. You have to see if it's true for you. That's number one rule of working in the light, is that every human has to have their sovereignty in order to choose what is true. And that being said, we are creators. And there is an element, there are laws to this universe which all organisms abide by. Those universal laws are really the only things that maintain this structure within certain boundaries. And yet there are infinite potential within every single human that exists. So in other words, it's up to us. As creators, we're creating with our words, we create with our emotions, with our intentions, with our thoughts. We are creating, and we also birth creation. We birth a child into this planet. And if we have a child in a state of chaos, literally, you and your partner are fighting, arguing, what are you creating? You're handing down genetically a lot of suffering programs, and that continues that lineage of suffering into humanity. In the same way, if you come into alchemy, for example, and you begin to hold a super high vibrational frequency when you're having a child, and this is a very important part of the hybridization program, children that are created in these hybrid programs are genetically modified from the conception, from that moment of conception. Scenarios are created where two souls are put together in units of intense love, a love that you've never felt before on this planet. And when that union is created, the child that is created is highly intuitive, highly activated DNA, high memories, the child that is born from that union. This is true for us as humans as well. And we know that because ancient practices of alchemy, sexual alchemy, have been deeply suppressed in our historical record. But those lineages that have practiced those, and usually they were the royal families and the elite that had access to this information for the purpose of creating incredibly powerful bloodlines that are activated because they become the power, So now the energy and the power is shifting from that 1% into the humanity, where the human now gets to apply these tools into their co-creation. And that's what the hybrid program is about. You choose the timelines that this human race is going to take next. Are you creating for healing, for evolution, or are you creating for perpetuating suffering and unconscious states of centripetal vortex spin of depletion of your life force? So this is my humble offering for that answer of why these hybrids are being created. But of course, there are many programs, and they all have a very specific frequency and intention of that creation.
It's definitely important that you highlighted the fact that it's all about frequency, because most people don't understand that. So it's very enlightening to all of us. And some of us knew that already, but it was also enlightening to several people in the chat room and also online who did not know that in advance. So thank you very much. All right, let's go to Nos. Nos?
Okay. In the Peninsula Rainforest in Washington State, there is an area that you follow along the road and you make a few stops along the way. You're going to encounter 12 trees that are the largest of their individual species in the world. It's phenomenal.
Wow, beautiful.
So if you were to go there on a road trip, doesn't cost anything, what would you pack for your picnic lunch?
For my picnic lunch, oh my God, I don't think I could even eat there. I would just be meditating with those ancient beings of memory.
It's amazing. You would absolutely.
Yes. Oh my God, I have to go visit that. I love trees. Me and the connection with trees are so deep. What would I pack for my lunch? Just a lot of water. Really, I would just love to meditate under those trees, honestly. That's my idea. But anything that would be nourishing, I would pack love, water, and yeah, that's it. My awareness. I don't know if that's a corny answer, but that's really what I would do.
I have to answer that. I would say water and maybe some fruit.
Of course, sure.
Fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's go to Drew.
Yeah, we just skated over it earlier, but sexual alchemy. What is sexual alchemy, and what is the thought process behind that? Like in my eyes, I see, two beings, positive and negative, or male and female, coming together in a point of love and a creation going on in the background. So my understanding of sexual alchemy is both beings holding the same intention, like what to create outside of that, like a manifestation of some type that benefits the family or whatever outside of the actual act of sex. Is that how sexual alchemy works on a base in a cut down way?
Well, in a way, and I will explain. This is a very large topic, but to narrow it down, it's to love yourself unconditionally, real self-love, to be a whole in that self-unconditional love, and to meet another whole in their unconditional love. And when you unite, you both completely create love. But love is not just an emotion in a romantic sense, or as it's been fed through films and Disney.
Right.
Love is a complete state of existence. It's a bioelectrical, biochemical architecture of the body that begins to create a Merkabah body, which means that the body is spinning in a centripetal spin of magnetism that is created in the body. Okay, and this bioelectrical charge, when that occurs, when the humans cultivate themselves, how do they do that? Deprogramming trauma from their genetic lineage until they come to the 0 point. The 0 point is that whole state of unconditional love. It's from the 0 point that unconditional love emerges.
Nirvana.
Yes, the nirvana, the samadhi, the ecstasy, that bliss state. This is something that is created first in the individual. And when it is united with another individual, the union that is created by that is extremely powerful. Think about it this way. You deprogram the trauma from yourself and your lineage. You exist in the 0 point. So when you unite, and let's say you have a child with that frequency, the child is a product of that 0 point. And from there, the DNA is a lot clearer in the input of information that you are handing down into this new organism. That means that child, that soul, has a broader opportunity of free will, of creation that they have available to them, that they also choose as a soul. So what happens is, and these ancient practices require, first of all, deprogramming of our programming about sex. Our programs around sex are completely upside down, inside out. We think about pleasure. We think about, these ideas of pleasure and what sex is, and these ideas of the roles of the masculine, feminine. But in reality, it has nothing to do with any of that. In fact, embodying pure love really doesn't require any identity at all, as any identity of any kind. And that level of cultivation of compassion and love is actually extremely healing for the genetic lineage, especially if you have a lot of sexual trauma. Now, I teach this sexual alchemy to people, both men and women. It's different. For men, they have to starve themselves from this unfortunate programming of sex only for pleasure or only for the orgasm. And to be able to break that habit is very hard for men, because we've been indoctrinated for centuries that all we're chasing is that little ecstasy. In reality, practices, for example, taught by Mantak Chia and many other systems through history that have hidden these practices, like Taoist sexual practices, talk about creating an ecstasy as a way of life, not just when you're, in intercourse. Can you bring that bliss state? Can you generate that bliss state in your body by sitting in stillness? This is really what it means to become an alchemist, because our sexual energy is the most powerful life force that you have in your body. And it's abused, and we are manipulated through that sexual energy tremendously through our senses, through our desires, through what we want. So the human that begins to become aware of that breaks those little desires in order to take control of their body and what is controlling them. The majority of humanity is driven by sex, actually. It's incredible. We pursue relationships. We want to have children. We have the wrong ideas about why we want to have children. And essentially, we are unconsciously unaware of how we perpetuate suffering on the planet. So the shifting of that basically now turns into a healing. And even through the sexual act, with a partner now becomes a healing element. And there are many beautiful practices that can be done in intercourse that when we enter into higher dimensional planes as a union, now we can leave the body together. Okay, and that's these are like initiatory practices that were hidden, that many of the royal lineages through history have been practicing in order to gain power. Unfortunately, they were misused, and that's what they call black magic and black energy arts. And we have to be very careful about discerning the difference between manipulation and co-creation, which is all based on free will and pure love.
Beautiful.
Everybody in the chat room is saying wonderful explanation. They understand you wholeheartedly. So thank you, Geraldine. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, one last question. I also want to thank you for being here, sister. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for being here. But why do we see patterns? Like, why do we see patterns throughout time? Why do we see patterns in our life? What is the reason behind patterns?
Amazing question. The nature of this entire universe is based on the Fibonacci sequence, which is essentially fractals, spheres within spheres, self-similar replicas of greater bodies. Okay, so even within every cell of your body, it's a fractal of this universe. And we can go really deep into that, but we would need a lot of time to talk about the intricacies of this. But essentially, the patterns of this universe and the way that all organisms manifest themselves into structures of light and energy are through vortices, toroidal fields, which hold vortex energy centers. And these toroidal fields, these emanations of energy that create the structures of our body, are all spinning. They create spirals. That is the form that this universe has taken for this three-dimensional plane. Therefore, this occurs, and this is true philosophically, psychologically, energetically, multidimensionally, and also physically in our bodies. So subconsciously collective, all things in this universe are repeating. And this is why we talk about the reincarnation cycle, karmic cycles. Those cycles exist until, here's the experiment, who is conscious? The one that observes. Remember, consciousness is when you observe, it changes. That's exactly what we are. We are existing in that architecture. So the moment that the organism begins to observe themselves, only then can they begin to pattern interrupt the unconscious repetitive cycles in which we are interwoven into. And this is what it means to wake up consciousness. We break those patterns, and now you become a creator. And really, truly, you can only be a creator so long in this dimensional frequency before you start to travel interdimensionally and then essentially leave this dimensional plane. That's what the Buddhists have reached their light bodies through the rainbow body. Once they become self-organized, they can choose to leave the body, and they leave behind a shell or nothing at all. And that's something that has been spoken of for a long time. So we all have that ability. And the key to consciousness, to waking up, is to break patterns. That's what it means to wake up.
Be a rebel.
Yeah.
To stop being enculturated by the dogmatic practices and narratives that are out there.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, let's go down the panel and take last comments. Nos?
Thank you for being here tonight, Geraldine.
Thank you.
Clearly, we connect on all the we know the stuff, so it's easy talking. You're very comfortable to talk to, and that's nice. I like to look at the show as we carry it out more as a conversation and a relationship that's happening instead of big formal interview process. And it's nice to be able to relate to people that we're relating to. So thank you.
Agreed. I love it. Thank you.
Nancy.
Yes. Well, I am a contactee. I have positive experiences all my life. And I've never felt as if I've been abducted. I agreed to do all this before I came to Earth. I was under a contract with Interdimensional. So, but having my Facebook group, people address me all the time and say, how do I feel about the fact that they feel abused? They feel they were hurt and all these horrible things. So for me, as being an admin in this group, and people asking me, what would be your advice for me? Because what would I say to them? You know, I can't call them a liar. I can't say you're not right. But what would you advise me? How do I direct them into seeking out correct information without being ugly or, stepping on their intellect?
No, absolutely. And every single person's experience is real because, again, we create everything, which is really difficult to conceptualize when we think about this, right? Because if people are like, wait a minute, I didn't create that I'm going to be abducted by these beings, right? But the thing is that because we know ourselves very little, and I say this in a very loving, compassionate way, and this was true for me when I first came into this field. I realized, first of all, I didn't know what peace was. I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what it meant to be safe, like truly, truly feel safe and secure in myself. Didn't know that when I first started doing this internal work. And it took a lot of work to begin to understand that. But what it taught me is that we have extremely strong filters of perceptions. And those filters of perceptions will change the way that we see an event. You can put 10 people in a room, and every single one of those people can have a different way of seeing what they experienced. So again, that is what it means to have a different frequency. Your perception will define your frequency, and they will define how you perceive what you experienced. Now, what is the healing process? Is that when you have these experiences and they were very traumatic to you, yes, these experiences are traumatic because we are so deeply stuck in this matrix that we don't even understand that there's something outside of us that can potentially be non-physical. So right there, that's a major filter that has to be dissolved in order for the person to even begin to consider that they were not harmed in some way. So this is the healing process that it takes some time to help gently shift the perception. And the way I work with this is by helping guide into as much of a 0 point of non-judgment as possible. This is very difficult sometimes because the humans want to hold on to judgment as a form of safety and security. Again, we're coming from that primal mind of survival. So gently work on moving from states of survival into states of creation, where the human begins to learn how to become more empowered and sovereign and understand how they are participating in the choosing of their experiences. Simply by asking them, hey, what is the emotion that you most felt this past year? And if the prime emotion in the past year was fear, sadness, sorrow, right there is the proof that the perception is extremely powerful about how they are perceiving things, and also the frequency that is making them a match to experiences that can be more parasitic, because that is very true that some people have parasitic experiences. So these are agreements that have to be cut. Always the human has to work energetically. We can clear these parasitic experiences out of the body. I teach something called running energy, where we use earth energy and cosmic energy in the body to begin to flush out these kinds of negative experiences that are no longer in alignment with the frequency. But in order to sustain that, the human has to sustain as much of a harmonious state of being within themselves as possible. So this is where we begin to understand the parallel between spirituality and contact. It goes absolutely hand in hand. There is no such thing as ET contact separate from spiritual cultivation. Those are some things. I know it's a lot, but little by little, gently helping them find their empowerment so that they understand we create everything. And on my YouTube channel, I do teach a lot of about how we biochemically, bioelectrically are projecting our reality. So this is something that we need to understand when we are having experiences.
Right. I
Thank
do have
you.
one last question from the chat room, and that is from Human Data. They want to know, astral projecting, is that the real life frequency?
Real life frequency. Well, I'd love to get a clarification on what you mean by real life.
I think he means the main frequency, not necessarily the frequency of love, the frequency of sexual alchemy, the frequency of fear, but the main frequency that we astral project with.
No, well, no, not really, not at all, really. Astral projection is just a mechanism that we have in order to move in and out of our body, just as in sexual alchemy is a tool that we utilize to refine our creation. In reality, your physical body is the instrument of frequency. And what drives this instrument is core subconscious programs. So whatever your core subconscious programs, which means emotions, basically. Why? Emotions are bioelectrical charges. Okay, our human organism is a bioelectrical organism. And every single emotion that you have is a bioelectrical charge that produces a biochemical response. And that biochemical response affects your nervous system, your muscle system, your endocrine system, which runs your chakra body, your energy body. So we have to understand that that whole system I just explained is responsible for producing and cultivating your vibrational frequency. We have a collective frequency that is a result of all of our ancestral programming, which is essentially your genetic data. So if you were to project a frequency of your genetic data, that would be the core frequency of what you are. And that's something that we are learning how to refine. All of these other things that we mentioned are simply tools that the human can utilize to access themselves, fractals of themselves.
Okay, Geraldine, can you let people know where they can find you and what you do out there in the real world concerning this subject?
Yes, absolutely. So, if you would like to have a hypnotherapy or DNA reprogramming with me, you can reach me at GeraldineOrozco.com. Can't see this wrong. And if you would like to learn more about meditation and practice with me, you can reach me at my YouTube at Geraldine Orozco. You can also check out my support group at hybridmother.com. Am I getting disconnected?
No, you're still here.
Okay, great. Yeah, and yeah, I'm so honored to be of service to you. Please do reach out to me. I'm happy to answer and connect with you guys. And yeah, thank you so much.
We're happy to have you here, and from all of us on the panel, I'm pretty sure we want you to come back.
Oh,
So
I would
you're
love to.
more than welcome anytime to come back, Geraldine.
Thank
So
you. I would love
you are now part of the UFO Man family. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'm sure Drew will keep us updated on your whereabouts and what you're doing and what you're up to. So please come back at your earliest convenience. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Nas, Nancy, Drew. It was such an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so from everybody on the panel, thank you to everybody who participated in the chat room. You were very engaging with our guests. We really appreciate your questions and your comments. Also, thank you to everyone who watched on Twitter, everyone who participated online as a whole, and from everybody on the panel, we want to say good night, and we'll see you next week. Next week is going to be on the 1st of June is our next live stream. So it's going to be longer than next Wednesday. It's going to be the 1st of June with Colin Saunders. That's going to be on a Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hope you can be there. We're going to be talking about the triangular UFO sightings in the UK. So from all of us, good night.
Good night.